tonight, but before I do that, I just wanted to say that this Howard and Sondra Bender educational series is it's a 4-part series that the Maryland Horse Foundation has put on here at the library. It was the Howard and Sondra Bender educational series was launched in 2023, so it's relatively new. We had a 4-part education series here last year, another one here, and the whole goal is really to educate the community about agriculture. Horses obviously are near and dear to all of us, so we try to get out and just teach people about that. So we've had topics here about agritourism, agricultural marketing, business, horse pasture management, all kinds of fun topics. So I'm excited to introduce our speakers tonight. The reason why I'm here though is because the Maryland Horse Foundation reached out to the University of Maryland Extension, which myself and Jen Reynolds behind the camera there, we work for them, and they asked us if we would partner and help them get this series off the ground. We've been really excited to be their partner for 2 years now. So, having said that, I get to introduce our speakers. Renee Wilson and Emily Stanton will be first up tonight. Renee is a 4th generation dairy, from a 4th generation, she grew up, just read my notes. She grew up on her family's 4th generation dairy farm in Baltimore County. And off the notes here, she told me she grew up in 4-H and FFA, which gives her a lot of street cred with everybody because those are such wonderful youth programs. But she recognized the need to provide an authentic relationship between farmers and consumers, and so became the creation of the Farmyard LLC, which I'm sure she's going to talk about. But it's a 40-acre farm in Parkton, Maryland that offers riding lessons, farm tours, a livestock program, lots of hands-on activities. And the Wilsons welcome thousands of guests annually and serve as leaders in agritourism. So we're really happy to have her here to talk about agritourism. And with her is Emily Stanton. Emily is the department chair of their equine department at the farm, and it's quickly becoming a very popular aspect of their business. That's good for the horse industry. She received her equine studies degree from Wilson College, and she's worked at various farms like Hanover Shoe Farms educating the public. So she has a lot of experience also in trying to teach everyone about these fun animals that we love so much. In 2022, Emily was named Farmyard Staff Member of the Year for her time, energy, and creativity dedicated to that department. And both women are passionate about giving back to the community and helping families connect to Maryland's #1 commercial industry, agriculture. So let's welcome our speakers tonight. Thank you so much for being here. We can't wait to hear what you have to teach us about. Thanks for having us. Could you clip me in?
Absolutely. I'd be honored. Okay.
Great. Well, again, thank you so much for the invitation. We greatly appreciate this opportunity, and I think you're going to find some of this story to be a lot of fun, some hardships that we've experienced, and then, of course, the positive attitude that comes along with any agricultural experience. We certainly want to recognize those things that we've overcome for obstacles, but also the positive impact that we're having as an industry in this state. Again, my name's Renee. Just kind of cover a couple of photos. I always tease when I speak that a picture's worth 1,000 words, and we have a bunch of pictures, and you get hundreds of thousands of words today, plus I'm a fast talker, so we're going to hear it all. But from left to right, this is a photo of the big red chair that we built, and children that helped us rebuild. So you're going to hear a bit about our rebuild story when we had to relocate, just kind of coming up with innovative opportunities, partnering with small businesses. This is a Sign Gypsy setup. And so they partner with us for a variety of activities. And then that's a photo from Maryland Farm Bureau. So I'm also a Farm Bureau member and a member of Young Farmers. And so that's my dad, Steve, and our horse Whistle. And I'll talk a bit about them as well. Ooh, there we go. Building a foundation. This is a little bit about me. On our family farm, 4th generation, I grew up milking cows, feeding calves, and doing all the hard work. And no job was too large for us or too small. My dad only had 2 girls, so we were expected to do all the things that a boy would do. And we greatly appreciated that. I also grew up through 4-H and FFA. 4-H offered an exploration program, so at about 8th grade, 9th grade, I was helping go into classrooms. My mom's also a teacher at St. James Academy in Moncton, Maryland. So that's kind of where my interest in educating the public, combining it with farming, came to fruition. I was also a Maryland Dairy Princess. And then when I went to University of Florida, I studied television and radio, something completely separate from the ag industry. But I quickly learned that my roots were just as important. So going through those photos here, this is a photo of my sister and I cringed at the fact that I stand behind that calf in this photo because we constantly are teaching children not to do that. So if anything, I'm teaching what not to do at the farm based off of example. So as I continued to grow up, I thought it was really unique in the Dairy Princess program. I started to make connections between agriculture and something that was considered cool or neat. And so the NFL partnered with Fuel Up to Play 60. So it was about children drinking chocolate milk to fuel their bodies. And so that's how I got invited to go out on the turf and take pictures with the cheerleaders. And so it kind of clicked in my mind that there were opportunities that are so unique that we don't quite tie ag into, but here's an opportunity for that. This is my cow Lily. So she is a Holstein cow, and so she only had a few dots. Well, we were asked to pick a couple of cattle and take them down to a swirly cow commercial for Turkey Hill. So when my fashion sense wasn't so great, we went down and we went onto the green screen, and it blew my mind that the gentleman that came out decided to wear white boots to a dairy farm. But I never forgot it. And recognizing that connection, again, something unique. Turkey Hill still shows these videos and clips, so you can see that at their Turkey Hill experience. And so again, Lily was all of her little black dots, and mainly on her ears she had black, so you can kind of see that paint in those photos. And then they edited it. So it's just something unique that, again, I'd never experienced as a farm kid, and it just opened my eyes to different experiences. And I apologize for the blurry picture here, but that's a photo of a cheetah. So when I went to college and started doing these news stories, I recognized that there was a disconnect and a need for farmers to communicate to the public and share their stories authentically. And if we weren't willing to speak, someone else was going to speak for us. Mm-hmm. And so I started finding farms that I wanted to talk about and stories that interest me. So I got to interview a lady from Carson Springs Wildlife Facility. So that's where the cheetah was. I've never been so scared in my life for a cheetah licking me. But there it happened, and I certainly will never forget that. There was a woman with an elephant farm who had unfortunately been painted in a bad light in a previous story, and she refused to talk to anybody from the news industry. But with my ag experience and riding horses, understanding what a livestock stick is used for and proper protocol, she was willing to open up to me. So I was able to go out and interview her. And then my top story was about a toothless monkey who had something to smile about. So I also got to go and interview a woman down in Gainesville as well. And so these were stories that were starting to stick, and I thoroughly enjoyed looking for that unique opportunity, but recognized my passion was more at home promoting agriculture and sharing with children and families and explaining to them what real agriculture is like and creating a direct source to an authentic farmer. So that's my dad there again in that picture. And so he gives the majority of our farm tours, which I think he hit about 110 last year for us. Identifying resources, skills, and strengths. So if there's anybody that's interested in creating some kind of agritourism venue on your property, I've kind of written this in a couple of different directions. Feel free to holler, ask any questions that you have, and I'll redirect. But conferences, classes, meetings, and research. So the first chapter, this was the first picture I had posted. And I included it in my slides because it was essentially the only thing I had at the farm that looked pretty, which was a rainbow. And then the rest of it was kind of working out of our back cow lot. And then, as time's gone on, this photo is actually comprised of all of these pictures from 2022 and when they rebuilt the barn. So each one of these little cubes had something. So again, that whole picture is worth 1,000 words. This is kind of how we've morphed into something even larger. But conferences, of course, were a big one for us, and identifying our mission. So Virginia has a really good program and offered an agritourism conference, and that's where I went in 2018. And so they had a really great opportunity to connect Farm Bureau, insurance agents, and some of these other individuals who are playing a role in agritourism. And so we kind of took some ideas from that and rolled with it. And so our mission was to develop a positive relationship between consumers and farmers through authentic and enjoyable hands-on agricultural experiences. And that is a nice way of keeping it vague, but also staying to our roots with authenticity and hands-on. To the left there, we built up from a cornfield twice so far. And so that's, again, us building and putting in our first pasture on the corner. So we kind of separated everything from the dairy farm. I understand one of the big concerns with having the public on your property is liability, and this was one of the ways we combated that. I always tell younger entrepreneurs that are looking for ways to do it, I draw and map out everything every year. So my doodles then turn into things. So again, this was kind of the process of writing thank yous to individuals as we grew. We were doing a grand opening that year. I did do helicopter rides 2 years in a row so people could fly over the field and understand what it looks like from a bird's eye view. And then I have an aunt and uncle that live in the UK, which I'll talk about later. So that's kind of an idea of one of the years we did that, so 2022 for that one. And then this is another high school friend of mine who was driving a combine, and so this little girl got to ride with him in the fall. So every year we pick out a select handful of children that get to ride in the combine and learn about agriculture. He's not much of a talker, and he knows I am, so I connect that bridge, and then they get to chatting, and of course he's passionate about this. So this is maize farming. Building a team. That has been something that I have really enjoyed. We have grown from about 4 or 5 of us starting the first year to now there's 35. Now it's anything from volunteers to paid staff, instructors, department chairs. And so it's an array of individuals. We have a lot of younger high school interns from Hereford High School and then North Hartford, all the way up to those who are retired and looking for something new or to give back to the community. And so that's some of our team members there. And typically I'm doing something goofy, for instance, wearing bunny ears. See, there we go. Growing pains and challenges. As in any farm, owning livestock, owning equine, we obviously are experiencing pains and challenges right and left. Safety and liability, of course, is the biggest one that I hear from farmers that are interested in expanding. It is certainly a conversation to have with an insurance agent. And so the first time I met my insurance agent, I laid it all out for her and I said, this is what I want to do. Here's where I am. And I was as blunt as I could be so that she could create the right plan for me. And whenever there was something that we had to tweak, she was right on it. One of her biggest things that she appreciates is we have everyone sign a liability form, not only to get on a horse, but at entrance. And we don't charge an admission fee. So every single individual is signing a form saying they acknowledge that they are walking onto a farm, there's dangers, whatever it might be. And so it's a whole sheet that they fill out, and it's good for the year. And we put signs out as well. The public perception of agriculture is a growing pain for us too, but it also is the reason why we're doing what we're doing. And that's where I think my Florida experience shines, because if we don't speak about our experiences and tell and involve the public, then how are we going to combat some of those myths that are out there and also help create the next generation that wants to give back and appreciate agriculture? So again, public perception, we've become an authentic source over the last 7 years with this business, and now we're helping others start to spread and communicate with farmers. Generating and identifying an interest. Again, just finding what people enjoy, because sometimes we get into the nitty-gritty and we have some higher level discussion, but sometimes it's more of a shallow experience that gets us started, and then we can grow into that, and we'll talk about that in a bit as well. Defining agritourism is probably one of my largest challenges even today. Although I'm a member of Farm Bureau and I've gotten involved with county legislation and understanding how that works, there's still a lot of gray area. And so I feel sometimes that I've had to create my own path and stumble as I went. But I'm not also, I prefer it that way, because then I have the opportunity to educate others who might not be doing what I'm doing, and also have the opportunity to help have a voice for farming. And agritourism isn't considered real agriculture by certain programs. So I did hear that from a couple of different groups when I was trying to get loans. It's my job to help show how it is. And so that's the way I'm approaching that challenge. And then rebuilding, which we're going to talk about. I do have a fun story to share about this donkey. So when we talk about liability, the first season that I was in, my cousin got bit by the donkey. And it's just a little nip, right? And we farm kids grow up and no problem, we just talk about it later. But when I went to that Virginia Agritourism conference, nobody wanted to talk about liability. And I think it was because we were so nervous to share the bad experiences that we had, and we were almost embarrassed. But I was so new that I had no problem talking about how Midge, Bailey. And so we did that, and all of a sudden the room started to open up and chat about those things. And I think that's one of the biggest things about being authentic is sharing the hardships just as much as we are sharing all of the celebratory topics or events that we're having. This is a little girl who's in the Chore Chart program, so we have children 4 to 12 help take care of the animals, so they learn about how animal nutrition works, cleaning water tubs, cleaning up after the animals, and it opens their eyes to experiences. So for instance, we'll talk about thoroughbreds versus draft horse. Why is my thoroughbred getting so much more feed in morning and night, and why is he not heavy like my other draft horse? And those are the conversations we're having with these children, because they're the same people in 10 or 15 years that might want to call in to the police or animal control not understanding why there's a fly mask on a horse's face, or why the horse's weights are different. So I've experienced it all. I've been called in for different things, and that's okay, because again, it's my job to help educate the public, and if they would have had that conversation with me, then it may have been avoided, and if not, the hundreds and thousands of children that are coming through now will. Or at least that's the hope. This is a photo from Towson Spring Festival. We were there this weekend, and then we were also there last year. So last year was a bit more sunny, so I chose that photo to use. We got a little wet this weekend. And then a gentleman who just has had an interest in pigs, and we'll talk about some of the animals that we have on the farm as we go. Just to give you an idea of the timeline in which the Farmyard's operated, from 2016 to 2018, I had graduated college in August of 2016, started this small roadside stand where you saw the picture of the cornfield, and then on the weekends we were open to the public, and the public was asking for more. So we originally started with mums, pumpkins, some field tours. Then it was, can you do Christmas trees and wreaths? So we started partnering with other farms and opening up more opportunities. By 2019, I'd left my full-time job. I was working at the mill in their marketing department. I love the mill. They have been incredible supporters of my business since. And so they supported me as long as they could. And then at some point it was 7 days a week all the time. And so I took the leap and we went for full-time at the Farmyard. As soon as I did that, in 2020 and 2021, we had a pandemic. And for agritourism, it actually worked out pretty well in certain cases and in different components of agriculture. It is really hard to create a business plan and a budget on those couple of years and feel like you know what you're doing. So I will say the pandemic incredibly helped our numbers because people were looking for things to do outside, and that was helpful, but it also made it tricky for me as a business owner trying to gauge what the next few years would look like. At the end of 2021, again, my family owns a 4th generation dairy farm. If anybody has experience with transitioning the family farm, that's a big topic in Farm Bureau now too. There wasn't a clear plan as to where the farm was going. There were multiple siblings. They had to go to court. My family was evicted from the home farm, and you're going to see a couple photos about that. Before I get into that full story, we did have an opportunity to apply for Farm Credit's Farmers on the Rise Award in 2021 at the same time. And so at that point, we didn't know if we were going to lose the farm or not. The same day I found out that my family lost the farm was the same day I found out I didn't get the award. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm going to tell you why in just a moment as well. But the community lined my parents' driveway as my dad drove out, and they created signs and supported him. So the Farmyard for those few years got to develop relationships, and then those people showed up in support. So the community did raise $63,000 for us to rebuild. And yeah, it was incredible. And thank you. That has been one of the biggest forces behind us who want to rebuild. So I was tempted just to, go back to my marketing job. It was easier, there was clarity. But my dad and I had a passion. My dad now had no home. He had to figure out where my mom and he were going to go. And what was his life going to look like? He had been milking cows. He was the third generation to do that. And at one point we were milking about 120, then at some point 200. And so he was really trying to figure out what his next direction was in life. And so again, the community rallied behind us and helped us rebuild. And so you start from scratch. And as somebody who has gone from having the whole family farm that's been passed on from generation to generation to rebuilding, this was our opportunity to start over. And a blank slate can almost be just as intimidating as anything else. So there was the first flag I put in the ground. we used Google Earth, and conveniently I purchased the farm right next door. And so we were able to move everything over that was mobile. Anything that wasn't, we redesigned. And so this is all of how I had mapped it out and what I was hoping for. So these are pastures or paddocks there. The yellow is buildings. Then we had a riding ring here and a parking space. And then I just wanted grass. And people were coming and I'd say, please wear your boots. I'm really sorry I don't have grass. So that's what that cornfield looked like. And I'd say that was probably in May or June. And so and we were missing some buildings in this photo too, but the community still came and they kept asking for more. So we're telling this story to the community and explaining how we're rebuilding. And again, our team was very supportive. The community just said, keep going. And so I applied again for that Farmers on the Rise award, and it was a $10,000 award. And we got it. And the way we did it was we took our pictures and said, yes, thank you. So we took those photos of all of the rebuild, and I said, this is my story. And they have been incredibly supportive. Farm Credit has asked me to come speak a bit too on just kind of how the story has gone. And so again, Farmers on the Rise, and I think this story tied well into what they were asking for, but I would have never had this impact if it weren't for losing the first time and asking to asked to come back. So we did that in 2023 and 2024. We finally had the gears turning, and these are the business components that we're working with right now. We do have 25 acres in crops and production, and my dad would really like to start making hay again, so he's got his first field started there, but the other had been in soybeans and corn, so we work with mazes for that. Education and tours is a huge part of what we do because that feeds into our other programs. Equine, and then the freeze is our snowball stand, so we do have a snowball stand on site. The livestock side of things, we have 42 children that will show animals this year at some fair, probably Hereford Junior Farm Fair at this point, because most of them are between the ages of 4 and 10, and they're not old enough to show at Baltimore County Fair, but I'm working on 4-H shows, and we have a lot of 4-H members coming up, and that has been really neat because we're taking some of those littler guys, having them work with rabbits, then they graduate into sheep or goats, and then something larger. But 16 rabbit children this year, and my sister has 9 dairy cattle that she's working with children too, and then I think they have goats probably out right now actually at the farm. So they're working with about 8 children with goats, and then the rest are some of the other programs we have. But yeah, 42 was the count this last time I looked. And then a retail stand, and that would have been hanging baskets, the pumpkins, mums, and those things. It is tricky a bit with retail just because we had to relocate some of the things we were growing at the old place, and the pumpkins we're trying to get situated and really map it out. Again, blank space means that we had to coordinate and figure out what areas we wanted to designate for the future and what currently would work because we don't want to outgrow what we've already designed. But the 2 green arrows are the 2 most popular. And so with that being said, education and tours is a huge one. Again, we have birthday parties and events almost every weekend to help. And I say events, that definition again in agritourism is very gray area. But for us, it's authentic. Every single person that's leaving is learning something. We have an American cream, which Emily will talk about. That's something that's been a big driver for people to remember, and you'll see why in just a moment. And the equine department, which is how I'm going to throw it over to Emily because she's probably running our top program right now.
All right.
So,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
Oh, sorry.
Question?
Yeah.
When you had the farm and you had all the cows there, did you have any streams going through your farmland?
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this. We were fortunate that none of the pastures had to be fenced off, and there weren't any streams. There was one spring, but they let it slide because it wasn't a through creek. Yes, but we didn't have any streams going through that I'm aware of that had to be fenced. Is that where you're going with it? Fenced in?
Right, because when I was back in the 60s, on my teenage years on a dairy farm, we had a stream going all the way through our property, and then many years later, it wasn't until like 10 years ago, I found out that this is in Carroll County, that none of the livestock or anything, any cows or horses, weren't allowed to drink the water or get into the water, I should say.
Yes.
And I found that to be quite shocking from a change in culture there.
That's very true. Our family also had some conversations about concrete and manure too in an EPA situation when we were at the old farm. That was about in 2010, yeah, so I could talk to you about that afterwards as well. But I certainly think things have changed, and that was one of the hard things of being a fourth generation dairy farmer. Some of the other changes that are happening, I'm trying to adapt with agritourism because there are some high restrictions right now. Yeah.
Do you know when that law came into effect? When did that occur?
With the fencing of the streams?
Yeah, was that before the turn of the century?
It had to have been, I would believe it would have been after 2010, but I'll look
And
into
after
it.
2010?
I would think so because I feel like that would have been one of the conversations that we had. But I could be, I don't want to get quoted on it,
Okay.
but I'll look into that and let you know.
Yes. Thanks.
I just want to say, I think that's fantastic. That's a fantastic testimony. And the reason I really, really enjoyed it is because a lot of times in life, people look at the negative as something bad, but you stuck it out, you went through it, you did what you needed to do to get to the next step, opposed to giving up. That's called faith. And so when you had faith, when you were speaking and you were saying, and I went out and I was thinking by faith, she went out and she did, and you showed us how you took another step, even though there was a downfall. So sometimes a downfall can be a good thing for us, and that's what you presented to us today. So I thank you. I thought that was, I believe that's fabulous. And it's really good for children and adults and everybody to hear something like that today in this time. The timing is impeccable.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say thank you. I think that was fantastic.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I will say the children piece, they don't know what zoning is or legislation or
Right.
rules.
Mhm.
So to them, it's a farm that makes them happy, and that's
Yeah.
the driver
Yeah.
because they don't have those restrictions in their minds.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you.
Well, my personal story isn't quite as exciting as Renee's, but it is a little funny how we got together. But so unlike Renee, I did not actually grow up on a farm, but that didn't mean that I didn't have agriculture experience growing up. My best friend lived on a dairy farm, and we spent a lot of days down in the milking parlor with her parents and being part of that milking industry, whether we knew it or not. And I was also fortunate enough to have parents who were able to and let me live my little girl dream of riding horses. So I got to ride out at High Ridge Farm, where Renee was also able to ride through her early years. So we actually met through Candy Cole there. And so I started riding about 8 years old. I rode through high school, during which I was also nanny of a family of 4 boys, beautiful children. I was nanny for them for about 12 years. And then I went off to college. College took me in different directions, but I did graduate with a Bachelor of Science in Equine Studies, so that's teaching and training specifically. After college, I went the different directions, and actually it was during my nanny job that I got a call from Candy Cole saying that someone was looking for someone who knew how to teach lessons and who was good with kids. So I happened to fit that bill. I said, give her my info, and I show up to the farm and here it's Renee. So everything comes full circle. So it's just been really great being a part of the growth of this department itself and just the Farmyard in general, because I actually was able, I started 4 years ago, which would have been before the move. So I got to see the original farm, and I've moved along to the new location, which has just been a blessing. As the equine director at the Farmyard, my responsibilities are not limited to, but also include managing our 5 other instructors for the equine program, and now 12 horses with scheduling, facilitating good client and instructor relations, and overall care or safety of the facility and its equine inhabitants.
Oh, I want to ask a question. I think.
Yeah.
In your barn on the left, is that a candle up at the top?
It sure is. I'm so glad you asked about that. And I would have touched on that later. And I'll speak about this later, but this is just one of the wonderful ways that we draw in the public by decorating our beautiful barn. It is a battery-powered candle. So fire and barns don't mix. And it is in a stirrup, yes. A little equine theme there for you.
What's the girl doing there on the right with the?
So both of these are pictures of me. So I'm there sweeping up the barn because I will never ask anyone to do something that I'm not willing to do. So there I am sweeping up. This was a photo shoot that Renee facilitated. We have, and again, I'll speak about this a little later. We have some relationships with photographers, so I was able to be my little princess self with, this is Dash, and he is a unicorn. He does have a little horn there, so we do have unicorns at the Farmyard.
halfling.
Yes, yes. So our equine department has branched out into several varying services. So of course we started with just lessons, but now we do so much more. So we provide lessons, different types, so that reaches different age groups. We have 30-minute lead line lessons and then up to hour-long private and group lessons. So our 30-minute lead line are most appropriate for the smaller children. It's a basic pony ride, but everything is included. So you're catching the pony, you are grooming the pony, you're tacking up, riding, and then everything in reverse, untacking, grooming, and putting away, sometimes feeding the horse.
What's the youngest you take?
I think the youngest rider for the lead line, I think we've done 3 years old, but that's definitely pushing it. We definitely prefer you to be at least 5 for the lead line lessons, but we also provide pony rides, just the $5 pony rides, Thursdays and Friday mornings. So the smaller children do get a chance to get their feet wet a little bit because horses can be intimidating. They're very small children, and not all of our horses are very small. So it gives them a chance to be able to experience horses, but on a smaller scale.
Could I tag on to that?
Absolutely.
The other part of that, and I'm glad you asked how young, one of my goals is to make sure when children go to somewhere like the Maryland State Fair, they're aware of what walk wide means. And so they're not running up behind a horse. And so how can we start instilling at a young age what safe behavior, not to run up? Balloons are scary, strollers, and a lot of our horses are pretty desensitized to the wild and crazies. But with that being said, yeah, as young as we can get them, at least understanding body language, and I agree, five and up seems to be better listeners, safer. But yeah, we do some pony rides and get them up on top of the horse.
Yeah, and that includes birthday parties, so children who maybe aren't necessarily looking for a lesson or for the pony rides, they're still coming and hanging out with their friends, they're still exposed to the equine world there at the Farmyard. So we also do, aside from the lessons, we have trail rides with the 40 acres. We have some meandering trails around the property, which are also used for not only the horseback lessons, which provides a great break for the horses to be able to get out of the fenced-in rings, so nobody gets ring sour, and then allows the students to be able to learn how to ride without a fence. That's also where Farmer Steve takes the hay rides for the birthday parties and other larger events that we provide. We do farm school, and that covers a deeper curriculum of all things farm related, whether it's gardening or animals, what have you. Then we have grooming classes, which are an unmounted activity, but that allows, whether it's younger students or larger, depending on the topic, and that covers anything from anatomy to how to bathe your horse, how to manage their feet, or how to wrap legs. So it's a little bit more condensed. Those are hour-long lessons that we do throughout the summer. Winter Barn Buddies was something that we started this year, this winter. It allowed, since we do sort of shut down for the winter, it's really cold for the littles to come ride. So in lieu of that, we invited some of our good and faithful riding students to come and try out some barn buddies. So they got the experience of all the things that we would do in our own barns: scrubbing water buckets, cleaning stalls. The other side of having horses is just as important to learn as getting on a horse and actually riding. We also take our kids to local fun shows, High Ridge Farm being one of those locations. Again, just getting the horses off the site, and then the students learning how to interact, be good sportsmen with their peers and other horses, putting them in different scenarios. We're also going to do on-site shows this year. I think the first one is at the end of May, so that'll be very exciting. First time we'll be doing that at the farm. Special events. Oh, sorry. So this picture is also a part of the grooming classes. This was a trail ride. And then this was, oh gosh, this was
giving a demo on Whistle's leg.
Yes, so Whistle had cut his leg at one point. So Megan's in here, and I'm helping hold bandages and things to wrap his leg, so the students got to experience that. So special events. This was a very specific class that we were providing, a different opportunity for students to get kind of to know the almost darker side of the equine world. Horses get hurt. They're big animals. How do we help them? So the special events, even to, we took our miniature donkey to a live nativity this last December. So that was exciting for everyone. And then of course, again, partnering with different photographers for those Princess photo shoots or other family fun events. And that is extended to our bunnies and the pigs and all the other animals there we have at the farm. Yes.
So the little girl in the red and white, was she afraid and standing far back, or?
Oh. Oh gosh.
She's getting a drink.
I think she's just getting drink. Yeah.
She looks like she's
She's a farm kid. I can tell you which child that is.
Okay.
Yes, she is.
All right.
And all right, so our horses, of which we have now 12. We recently just took in 2 more to add to our team. So here, just a quick introduction. This is Gus, or Jumanji. He's extra special. He has 2 names. This is Silver. He's one of our geriatric members. He's just under 30 years old. This is Whistle, who you've been hearing so much about. He's about pretty much the face of the farmyard these days. He has a book written about him. And then Whippy there, he's one of our Chincoteague ponies. So as far as abilities and disciplines go, we have a variety of personalities and skills with all of these horses. They all provide different challenges for our riders. And with our 6 instructors, which includes myself, we teach all things horse, from English to Western. There's nothing off limits, from groundwork, general care, of course, and then relaxation. Each of our horses provide those challenges for our riders. So each time they're riding a different horse. They're not necessarily on the same horse every time. So they have to adapt and learn as they go. From more common breeds like the Percheron or thoroughbreds and quarter horses, we have our unique or rare breeds, Gus/Jumanji being one of those. He is the American Cream Draft that Renee had mentioned before. He's a very special guy. And then down in the corner here, this is Whippy. He's a Chincoteague pony. We also have a second one. Her name's Tabby. And it's cool because they have records, so you can go back through online. I recently found Whippy's baby pictures. They're so cute. So Gus is a special guy, and I know you have a personal relation with the family that gave him to us. So I don't know if you want to speak about that.
Sure. Yeah, I can really quickly. So I've always taken an interest in something unique and different. The American Cream. Is anybody familiar with American
We
Creams?
have one.
Do you?
Oh, nice.
It might be a drum.
No, it's in there.
Well, and he could be a kind of an offset of that too. He's not pedigree. He's a gelding union now. But I had been watching the page. A gentleman posted about it, and they kind of told his story while he was in Indiana, and I had a wild hair, so I said, "Yep, let's give it a try." So I reached out. I said, "This is what we do. Please take a look at our website if you think this is a good match. We want to give him an opportunity where children will love on him. We will continue to represent the breed as best we can and go from there." And so the gentleman is at, I want to say it's Purdue, and he runs the Glue Club, so he travels internationally and couldn't keep up with how this horse was getting abscesses quite frequently, and also had heaves. So they were trying to come up with a way that they could find a good home for him because his wife is a much smaller person and couldn't handle the horse by herself. So we have a team of strong women that are ready to do it. And so Bill and Stephanie came from Indiana last year to come visit this horse from Indiana. Oh, they came from Indiana to visit him this summer, and they can do it again every year. So that was the kind of win-win for both situations, where they could keep an eye on him and check in on him whenever they'd like, and he is welcome to ride him when he comes. So that's kind of how we see him. 18, 19, I think. Yeah.
But do you ride him as well, or are you?
He is part of the lesson program. Yep. Of course, certainly monitored based off of his heaves.
I don't think he drives.
Yeah.
I wish he did. The Percheron does, but he's been retired too. Yeah, I've got 3 carriages that I'd love to put down there yet.
So all of our horses are multifaceted. Of course, here we have Whistle being part of photos. Again, Silver gets to be a unicorn, a little unicorn horn. And then part of our grooming classes, the little girl there, her family owns Whippy there now. So with the demand for lessons, we have grown 3 times the size from just last year. So more and more people are interested, more and more people are contacting us. They want to ride, they want to get their kids involved. So with the demand for lessons, we also need more horses. So we're trying to accommodate that where we can with the 2 new additions that we got.
And we don't advertise being fancy by any
No.
stretch. Our goal is to build the foundation for those children and redirect them wherever they choose to go. So any of our horses, we tease their backyard ponies, right? And we do crazy things with them. But ultimately, the idea is Midori took lessons with us. She owns her own pony now. And we were able to facilitate
That's
that.
awesome.
So that's kind of the step we're trying to take in helping these children and families, because it's intimidating to go to an auction or find the right connection, and so we're trying to serve as that bridge.
Yep. And they're all very well loved by our kids, regardless of who they are.
Overloved.
Overloved, yeah. So with 6 instructors means we have a wide variety of skills and knowledge that we bring to the table. Here pictured are some of our instructors as well as riders. Josie, Holly, Maggie, Ellie, Madison, and myself here with, we took Whippy and Gus and little Gilbert, our miniature horse, to a clinic there to talk to kids about rare and unique breeds.
At the Ag Center.
At the Ag Center, yep. Here is a picture of a group of riders that I have on Monday nights. They have a good time. And then at the bottom is we've got little twinkle toes. We like to make things creative for the kids. So we have glitter hoof paint for all the little girls who love their unicorns. So we get to have fun during our lessons. Let's see. So all of our instructors, because of their wide variety of backgrounds and experiences, their careful eyes and their expertise in handling horses, as well as the students, has helped our program grow, again, 3 times the size as it was last year. We are an all-inclusive business. So anywhere, it doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter what your background is. If you come to the Farmyard, you have a place. If you're willing and wanting to learn, you come and you learn. There's even some mother-daughter pairs that come and ride with our instructors and take lessons, sharing that family love of the equine world. All right, so outside of the barn, here is where all the magic happens. So you see our beautiful new barn in the background. In the foreground, of course, this is our riding ring. And this is a picture specifically of, I want to say this was just our egg hunt, I think, because we have pony rides. We've got the ring split here for pony rides for one of our events. So with the riding ring, it's certainly been a step up from where we were at the original location, where we came from this little grassy paddock area, to now a beautiful larger ring with stone dust footing. Yay! But surrounding the ring, along the fence on the outside, you'll see wooden plaques that were created for the wonderful donors that helped us through the rebuilding process. So it's kind of an honorary thing, a little gift for them. So every time they walk along the riding ring, they'll see their names there. And then with this ring for lessons, we also have a round pen, another location for smaller things like the lead line lessons or pony rides or general groundwork. As I mentioned before, there are the trails that go through the property for the horseback riding. And then in this picture, you will also see these tall poles. This is our lighting situation at the moment. We did apply for a grant last year for new lights to be installed because with more lighting, we can teach longer days and later into the year. Of course, the seasons are against us most of the time, whether it's cold weather or just the days getting shorter. So we're hoping, this is just one of the things that we're working towards, one of the projects that we continue to strive to help keep the public at the Farmyard and learning and experiencing all there is to learn about, whether it's horses or just agriculture in general. We want to be able to reach those people, and we can do it more if we have better lights. So that's just one of the things that we're working towards as a department. That's outside of the barn. Now inside the barn here, this barn has been uniquely designed to fit our business's needs. You'll notice here we have these stalls. We have 8 stalls, some running down both sides, and then a tack room kind of in this area. So on the doors, the sliding doors, which each have a number, we have these cool little windows, which have also been designed and installed by Renee's father, Farmer Steve. He's a man of many talents. So, of course, all the animals that we have at the Farmyard are majority herd animals, right? And for those of you who are familiar with those animals, they like to be in groups. They need to be with their friends. So with the windows across from each other, the smaller animals, like your donkeys or lambs, are able to see each other through those bars. And then your taller animals, like Whistle and at one point alpacas, they can see each other through the top of the bars. So everything's an open air concept. You can see this picture was actually taken from the loft area. So everything's very open. If a horse heaven forbid, happens to rear up, they're not going to hit their head on the top of the barn. Everything's very open. We have a lot of air that blows through and keeps things very nice aerated.
Decorated for Easter.
Yes, I bet you're wondering what the heck these eggs are. So just like the Christmas picture, we have decorated the barn. It's become a bit of a tradition now. The people look for whenever they come to our larger events. So on our Easter egg hunt opening day, we had decorated the farmyard back, or the barn itself here. In the back, there's like a little photo opportunity here with this family. We made like a little flower shop in the back. And then we have the hanging eggs here, which some were low enough that they were really desensitizing our horses as we walk them in and out. But again, nothing is too good for our horses or our animals. So the 12 by 12 size of the stalls are also really great for having a breeding program. So whether it's Dolly the donkey or our, again, a unique sheep, the South Down sheep, she recently just had the 3 lambs. So they're still running around here in the stall. Now I wanted to revisit this picture because I know Renee had it on an earlier slide. So the Farmers on the Rise, this award you can see as you enter the barn. Actually, I wish I should have taken a picture of it. It is on the top of the door where the tack room is. So it's one of the first things that you see when you walk into the barn. If you look at our Maryland barn license, you will see that the name of the barn is the Rise Barn. And I think that just speaks to, again, farmers who we are raising up from young to continue that generation of passing down agriculture from family to family or from family member to family member, and then also rising from the ashes, or in our case, a cornfield. So in honor of that, the barn is named the Rise Barn. So then also in this area, in the loft area, you'll see a very large poster that covers all of the names of the people who donated during the rebuild. So we're definitely grateful and thankful for them because, of course, without them, none of this would have happened.
So I have another question. So
Yes.
do you advertise online? I know that's very popular, right?
Yeah.
So that's how you get most of your people to come. the
Yes,
kids.
website, social media. Of course, our target audience is primarily parents of children 4 to 12, but we
Okay.
have, and grandparents love it too because it's a whole generational thing. But yes, we are online. And then this barn specifically, that $10,000 from that award went into this barn here, which I have a funny story, but I want you to finish and then make sure we're okay on time. So
Another quick question. School age kids, do y'all have any kids that's coming to get their community hours?
Yes.
That would be a great idea. Okay, so do y'all do kids in high school or?
we have 2 interns from Hereford High School right now,
Oh, okay.
and then there's another young lady who didn't need the service hours but comes from North Hartford because she enjoys it. And then we'll do another internship program. There's also, we're partnering with another nonprofit called Farmyard Friends, which focuses on those rare breeds with Livestock Conservancy. And they're gonna be the ones that'll facilitate the volunteer side of things in the future.
So I want to ask you something afterward
Okay.
as well. Thank you.
Did you have anything to say about the inside of the barn?
No,
Or-
go ahead.
Okay.
I'll add just one.
All right, so I think this is my final slide here. So the goals for the department. Why is the equine department so important when equines aren't exactly looped under the same agricultural umbrella as, say, cattle or sheep? Of course, we're not sending our horses off to the meat farms. But this is all about making connections. So if we look at the pictures here, we have Whistle is at Pretty Boy Elementary School. He goes on field trips. A very interactive field trip for kids. We take the books, they get to talk about Whistle, they read about his story and why being compassionate and caring to animals is so important, and they can see the love and care taken with him just glows, and they can see where he started from. If you guys are familiar with his story, they can see where he came from and then now where he is. We have Sweet Miss Karen, who brings for our large events her carriage, and then sometimes her team of halflingers and sometimes her beautiful draft horses to do carriage rides. And of course, this is actually the picture of the Great Indiana family that was kind enough to sell us Gus here on their summertime visit. And this is a picture of Chris Knight. He's one of our farriers who comes and helps out, showing this young boy during a grooming class all his tools, sharing his craft. because I know I had gotten a lot of questions whenever I started my education in college. Well, what kind of job are you going to have? What are you going to do with that degree? Well, I think the equine world is severely qualified is not the word I'm looking for. I have the word for it.
Opportunities that are out there.
Yes.
That they aren't.
Yes.
Or maybe the connections could be.
Yes, and the connections aren't necessarily there. It's oh, well, what can you be? You can be a farrier, or you can be a teacher, I guess. Well, no, there's so many more opportunities for the equine world is just much larger than just being a farrier or just being a vet. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. So all of these things that we're doing whenever we're talking to the public is making those greater connections. So this is exposing the children to the wide variety of jobs that there are. Our job at the Farmyard is to make each experience memorable. So here, this kid may never talk to another farrier in his life, but he got to touch the rasp. He got to talk to a farrier. He got to see what he was doing with that horse's feet, which looks pretty cool, if you ask me. How often are you going to take a carriage ride? Each experience is going to be a memorable experience. We partner with the local and not so local groups to bring unique education to the community around us. And the more we educate our youth about the reality of farm life and the care and attention required to have happy and healthy animals, the better our world becomes, because each kid that comes to the farmyard has to be a productive member of society one day. So we have to raise them so that we don't have problems later down the road and we can keep the agriculture going. Because you have things like rezoning issues or people trying to sell off family farms. Agriculture is what keeps us alive, and the kids are where it comes from. So we have to start there.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean for that one to get too emotional, but yeah, I just really dig the Farmyard, and you all should too.
That's your passion and your desire, and it's coming from your heart.
Out of respect for your time, how are we doing? I know we started a little late.
I think we probably need to take maybe a 5-minute break and then
Sure.
we'll have our second set of speakers. But if you guys want to, finish up with any concluding remarks, please do.
Sure.
I know you
Just
have-
click through a couple
Sure.
of them, and I'll just say one or two other things.
Your time.
You're good. Keep going.
Okay.
So as we covered, the hopes are to connect children, and in about 10 or 15 years, I've got to figure out how I'm growing with them and where they're headed. So is it a degree at University of Maryland and pursuing something in that career? Is it remembering an experience they had to pursue other opportunities and remember those who had a positive impact on them? We, again, parked in to Maryland level, so thank you again for this evening. And then also United States and the UK. So I'm traveling quite a bit now to try to spread the word and recognize agriculture at all levels. Okay, go ahead. And then, of course, creating connections. My final remark will be, when I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to have a horse unless it was black and white and blended in with the cows. So I had a black and white pony for all my Holstein lovers in the room. And that's how I was able to get away with it. She lived on corn silage with the rest of the cows. And then she carried me to all kinds of heights, and we did a lot together. But my favorite part is that barn. It's not a horse barn. It's a barn for all livestock. So my father would be very upset if I said it was a horse barn. We currently have more horses on the farm than we do cows. So we have certainly made a dent in that. And then, of course, there's different organizations that have supported us along the way. But we are grateful to have this opportunity to share our story.
Is that Texas?
Texas
Texas
Roadhouse.
Roadhouse.
Yep.
I was just there.
They pay, each store pays an individual to support
Nice.
different organizations in the community. Yep. So they have partnered with us on a lot of our activities.
That's great.
Thank you very much.
Go there.
I have a list of questions. How many acres do you have?
I was just gonna ask that question. You
It's 40. So the original home farm was 110. It touched another 80. So we went from working on about 190 or 200 acres down to 40. But that home farm had all the dairy barns and all of the other crops. So I'm down to 40 acres now. And I say down to, but we're making a huge impact on just those 10 acres, and the rest is crops. So we'll see where we head with it. But Yes, and
you
I,
still have dairy now, or?
my sister shows competitively, but she has them spread through multiple dairy farms at the moment. I think her goal is to get back to it at some point, have her own herd again, but right now we just spread them out.
Where's the farm located?
Right at the Maryland line, so exit 36, which is the Bell 83, Road 83.
So, Pennsylvania?
It parked in Maryland, top of Baltimore County.
Top of Baltimore County.
About 35 minutes from here. Yeah, it's York, Baltimore, Hartford, all are pretty close
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Can I ask 2 more questions?
As long as we're
Sorry.
allowed, yeah.
That's sort of late to this. The farm that had to be sold, that was in your family, is that still a farm?
It's still in the family. The other relatives
Okay,
bought
so
out
it's
my
still
parents.
Okay.
Yep. I could do a whole speech on that.
And then, this gets a little political, but I had heard, just through the grapevine, that there's some zoning issues now that
Mhm.
That's what
is
she
that
was telling me.
resolved, or is that, what's happening?
Wade
with
Cox will make that decision.
She mentioned-
Yeah, scroll to the next one really quick, and then I'll just answer this, and you can see all the other obstacles we've dealt with. But the zoning, it has not been made public, but I received multiple phone calls from Wawa this summer prior. The person who submitted it was not in our district, and that individual works for a bank that was doing a promotion for Wawa. I was never contacted by the county to tell me that my property was up for rezoning, but it is legal to rezone submit an application to rezone somebody else's property.
Really?
Wow.
Yes, legal.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I've learned a lot from this rebuild and growth, and that has been one of the big things. But we had 60 people on that phone call when, unfortunately, we got snowed out that night. But there were people ready to go, and again, the community is willing to get behind it, and they respect that usually at those meetings. So, yeah, but at this point, Wade Koch has the final decision. We've had multiple letters submitted to him, and he said he was going to vote it down, but we won't know until, I've been told, June and September, so we're waiting to hear. But it's a completely separate, just happened to hit me in the state, because they only do it every 4 or 6 years, so that hit me after we rebuilt.
But you have a lot of people backing you up, so it
We
should
do,
be okay.
and a lot of children that don't know what zoning means.
Yeah.
So,
That's
yeah,
okay.
that's what drives us.
They're gonna grow up.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
that's a great question, though. I'd be happy to talk to you about that some more too, Joyce.
All
So,
right.
yep.
All right, well, let's go.